Hey everyone. To anyone listening, welcome to our very first episode. In today's episode, we'll be spoiling Jordan Peele's entire filmography. So that's spoilers for Get Out, Us, and of course, Nope. We hope that you enjoy listening as much as we enjoyed making it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of We Ain't Know What We Calling It Yet. If you got any ideas, let us know. But today, I'm Will. I'm joined also with Warren and Carter. Go ahead and say hi, guys.
What's up?
How's it going?
And as I said before, we're discussing Nope, Jordan Peele's brand new awesome movie. So, who wants to get right into it?
Let's do it.
Fire away.
Brief synopsis of the film is a bunch of ranch hands starring Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer, respectfully as OJ Haywood and Emerald Haywood, also called M, encounter an alien. Let's just put it right out there. Big old UFO. It's a brand new take on the flying saucer storyline, and it's their fight to declare dominance of their father's horse ranch, who passes away at the beginning of the film. They're joined along the way by a tech guy by the name of, what is it? Angel Torres. Thank you, Carter. Angel Torres. And he hooks up cameras and everything. And they eventually also enlist the help of another film creator who's known for getting impossible shots. And that's really what they're searching after, is this impossible shot. Do you guys want to go into some of the themes that this movie has?
Let's go. What you got?
So right from the start, it sets off the taming of wild creatures, right? And it's the man's dominance over animals, or the supposed dominance over animals. You have Jupe on the set of Gordy, which gets into later with a bit of a flashback sequence where he's on set of a film where he's a child actor. The monkey goes, or the ape goes crazy as it is told about its birthday, and balloons start popping. And so it just goes on a rampage, kills everyone. And then eventually the monkey gets put down. Sorry, it's an ape. Apes don't have tails. And it's, I believe they mentioned later on that the Ringling brothers also went through that same exact type of thing. So they're bringing the real world application to this fictional world. Always a good twist. What do you guys think of the opening sequence?
Wait, the Who brothers?
Ringling. They were a group of circus brothers who owned tigers. And then eventually those tigers that they were like, oh yeah, these are tame tigers and everything. They just let them wander around their house. The tigers kind of ate them, or not ate them, but like attacked them viciously and killed them. So it's a whole take of, you think you have the wild tamed, or you think that you can assert dominance over a creature, but really once you go into its habitat, and we see it taken on another amazing look in the movie Jaws, and a really crappy look in perhaps the upcoming movie Beast. But it's this idea that you can take the animal out of the jungle and then take the jungle out of the animal.
Interesting.
Yeah, great point. I agree.
We'll get into it later, but I'm not sure I agree that that fits this movie perfectly.
Why don't we just start with that now? Because that's essentially the opening sequence. Do you think that theme of taming the wild animal carries well, or carries at all?
Somewhat. I don't know if it's truly taming the wild animal, but I think you're dead on with the assertiveness over nature, and that it's a matter of control. It's a matter of power, and that man is trying to get more power and exercise power over nature, and constantly thinks that we have nature in our control. And that's a huge theme that's in a ton of movies. And it's done well here yet again, I think. Yeah, opening shot, where, I mean, spoilers obviously, but the monkey is the chimpanzee.
It's not a monkey.
Doesn't have a tail. It's not a monkey. Chimpanzee is shown killing a young girl, and then circles around and then touches your shoe to either check if she's dead, or I don't think showing remorse. But it's hard to say, because then, even though the scene cuts there, we're later shown that it wandered over to Jupe and held out its hand as a, like, that's what they do, their fist bump in the show. But when apes hold their hand out like that, in that certain way, that's kind of showing a sign of friendship, and also of submissiveness, really, to other apes, or a tamer in that case. So
now that shot, the original shot, the person on the floor, was that Mary Jo? who we see later, or is that somebody else?
I don't know, honestly, because Mary
Oh.
Jo's the one who's showed up in the bleachers later, whose face is all
Yes.
deformed, right?
Yes.
I like,
I'd have to look at the credits.
yeah, I would. I think it's a possibility,
I
but
can't remember because Jupe did explain who the something about the story about the shoe. I can't
yeah,
remember if he said who it belonged to or not. That's something I'd have to go back and see.
yeah. It's the one thing, unfortunately, is I don't know. I struggle to see her surviving that attack.
The implication definitely seemed like the person was
Yeah.
dead, but it was tough to tell.
Hmm.
I don't remember the clothes on the person. I know it was a dress, but I don't remember if both the mom and the daughter were wearing dresses. It's
Hmm.
definitely something to look back into. But that would totally explain why she's in the bleachers. That was one of my points at the end. It was that this person wasn't either memorable enough or stood out enough as a plot point to me that I didn't know her purpose. Like, she's there with the deformed face. Jordan Peele's not the type to miss
Yeah.
something as odd as that.
Hmm.
You know what? Well, I'm glad you brought that point up because I think that's a very familiar thing in this movie. I think that happens multiple times with people who aren't really there for any purpose.
Okay. So before we move the opening scene though, can y'all explain to me the shoe? I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
I don't either, unfortunately. It's standing up. There's something there. And like it I don't
My
know.
understanding, and I could be wrong, but my understanding is that much like the entire opening scene, it's not really there to do much for the movie or the plot. It's there just as kind of a jarring opening to make you think.
But it's later shown in the glass case and it's still standing up, right?
Yes. Well,
Well,
was it
it's on
standing
a
up or is it
pedestal.
hanging?
Is it
Was
on
it
a
on the
pedestal?
wall,
It's
or
probably on a pedestal. It's
might
not
be
on a
on a
wall.
pedestal?
It's in a
Okay.
glass case, like you keep a signed baseball in there or something. But it could have been on a stand or stood up there just as a reminder to him, which is creepy. But I honestly think that the creepiest, most disturbing thing in the movie was the chimpanzee attack when we see it
Good old Gordy.
later, fully fleshed out. Yeah.
And that flashback scene really ties into the overall beginning, right? It just expands on it. And what do they do in that flashback scene? What's the first section they go to? They go through a jungle first. They
Mhm.
establish where that animal came from, where it is now, and the fact that it's the same place. It's on the same room. And nothing changed about the animal. We just thought we had it under control, or they just thought they had it under control. And in reality, it was always there with free will. It always had the idea of, no, I can still do what I want. I can still be, even though I'm not considered a an alpha predator or anything like that, I can still wreak havoc on the unsuspecting victims that are here. I can still assert my dominance when needed. And I thought that was very good.
Yeah, it's just approaching it from our limited human perspective. Like, because one thing that Angel says when he's first installing cameras, because he's a conspiracy theorist or whatever, it was something along the lines of like, um, he just he lays out like they're either here for this or for this. They're either civilization destroyers or they're here, they're benevolent and they're here to save us or whatever. I think he says one more thing, but then it's revealed that, obviously he doesn't know what he's talking about. This isn't an alien spaceship at all. It's just an organism of some sort, and just shows a lack of human knowledge.
And just a superiority complex of just,
Yeah.
I see something and I'm like, oh, I got to figure it out. Even just the type of clothes you wear or the car or how you drive. There's just this idea of, oh, I got it. I understand everything. And it's always got to be second guessed because people are individuals. They're smart. They're awesome. They have lives that I'm not a part of. They raise families. It's just a great little underlying thing. Now, that, of course, is me putting my experience into the film, which might not be Jordan Peele's point, but it is something that I took away as well. Warren, do you think that there were any characters introduced in that opening that were useless or worthless or not come back to kind of help us move into the next part of the movie where we're introduced to the dad and all that? Or
Oh, absolutely. The entire opening scene never really connects to the main plot of the movie, and those characters are only really there as a lazy transition later on in the movie. They're never used for anything, and every time you think they're going to be used for something, the character just dies. So Jupe, Mary Jo, and Gordy, all three of them, they don't provide any type of value to the plot. they're just kind of thrown in there, and they're basically, it's a completely separate story arc from the main story.
I get that. I don't really think it's a real complaint though, because it's more of a thematic tie-in. It's saying here's this guy's story, here's his experience with nature and with film, and then he's gonna cross paths with these other people's experience with nature and their experience with film. And so it's with each in each movie, Jordan Peele is he's become less like airtight with his setups and payoffs, and he's going more expansive. He's going for bigger stories and more explosive stuff, which is awesome. And I like that.
Really, I thought he toned down a lot.
Really?
Because
You do?
I think Us is an incredible, spoilers for
True.
Us, by the way, but where things are holding hands
Yes.
essentially, and you have a very ambiguous ending, which I very much liked.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of his most explosive things. I thought this took a completely different direction, especially revolving around silence. Jordan Peele I very much came in and left a little disappointed based off my own expectations regarding the score, or regarding aggressive soundtracks that really helped to jar me into a certain emotion or something
Like
like
Us.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Us does it incredibly well.
Yeah.
The lament, the lamenting soundtrack of Get Out, I also very much loved. And the almost psychedelic feel to the music in that one versus the very jarring, abrupt, just critical mass soundtrack of Us. I was hoping for something like that again, but in this one, he very brave, very much took a step back from something that had, in my opinion, become a signature and moved towards the utilization of a silent medium. But also to get back to what Warren's saying, if I may contest it, I do think that I think that opening scene helps to characterize Jupe and why he does what he does at the farm, right? Or at Jupiter, what is it called? Jupiter's?
His little, not a fairground, but a little amusement park kind of thing, I guess.
It's like a little rodeo, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like there, he pretty much decides that, oh, well, Gordy didn't attack me, so I must have a gift, or I must be able to do this. He does it with Lucky, the horse. He says, come on, go, do what I want, do this, do that. But he's not the trainer of it. He just expects it to do what he says. Just as he's expecting the alien to only eat what he says it can eat, when in reality, it's a beast all on its own. It's massive. It's untamable. It is there to devour. It's there to assert dominance and to have its own territory and fulfill its will. And he sees himself as the friend. He even says it, he's like, they've chosen me. They want me. And that was ingrained to him as a kid on the child, as a child star, where he just goes, oh, I'm the one in the million, and not maybe we should respect nature. Did you get any of that type
Yeah.
of theme transfer?
Makes sense.
Sure, but that still has nothing to do with the main plot.
But the main plot is about beating a creature. It's a monster movie, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so it's how do they beat the monster? And he has it set up as the because the Haywoods own the ranch, and as M says, it's like they're the oldest Black family in history and stuff like that. They got skin in the game. And Keke Palmer is just awesome in this film. Personally, love her to bits. Definitely stole the show alongside of Angel. And nothing transferred, nothing.
I just, for how much time they spent on Jupe specifically, I think they should have used him more in the plot. He never, like, the only time he interacts with any of the main characters, it's just that one scene where they're talking about buying the horses back, and he like briefly mentions like another flashback to the opening scene, but it never connects or pays off, in my opinion. And for how much time they spent on him, it's just like a throwaway side plot, basically.
Side plot, but I wouldn't call it throwaway. I think that's just kind of how horror movies work. There's always, it's just a given. There's always got to be people that you got to have there so you can kill him. And I kind of appreciate that they tied it in a little bit, or tried to.
If that's the case, they could have just wrapped everything for his story arc up in like, 3 or 4 minutes instead of the 15 minutes or whatever it took, 15 or 20 minutes of screen time he had. I think they drew it out for far too long for how little of a role he had.
He does come back to contest them over the stealing of his statue, though, later on in the movie,
Yeah.
and to invite them to the family night, which is where everyone dies. Now, I don't think he's expecting everyone to die. I think he's just expecting the horse to die. But it is to note that he wants to flaunt his power over this monster in front of them.
Oh, yes, that was another pointless scene where he's just standing at the gate shouting across the field at them.
Not really, because they just took his horse, and it's like funny too, talking about, hey, where'd you get that horse? I don't know, where'd you get yours? And that's that, and that, what that establishes? That establishes the horse there. And it aside from just seeing it once, it really puts it in your mind. And then you're like, oh, it eats the horse, and then there's the flags dropping from it. And that's a huge, huge plot point. So it's all just setting things up.
Now, that scene, yes, but the part with Jupe, not so much.
Yeah.
I think Jupe, I don't think the movie can really happen without Jupe, without his arrogance. I think that has to be addressed because OJ, Daniel Kaluuya's character, has a respect for these animals, right? Even in the introductory scene with him, where they're at the ranch and they're going through the breaking of the horses and all this stuff, and then his dad dies, he has done the work of what it takes to tame and work with animals. He has a certain amount of respect for the creatures and a care for them, as seen in the follow-up to after, where his dad dies. He says, hey, please don't come near the animal with these reflective surfaces. You have to stay away. We're handlers and stuff like that. And meanwhile, M is just trying to promote herself. And you get the duality of these two characters, where one's trying to get up and out as quick as she can, and the other is really trying to make Dad's dream work. And it's all contested by the next door neighbors, right? Jupe, because that's right where his farm is. It's right there. He can see it. The lights are there. We get that great scene where OJ is going out into the field to look for one of the horses that M spots in the field, and then he goes and he sees the lights flare up from Jupe's carnival, and then they go out, and it just builds that tension of what's there, what's happening.
All right, so a couple things. First, we'll just kind of wrap up the point about Jupe. I think the movie would have worked perfectly fine if you took Jupe out completely and just threw in a random bozo who got a little arrogant and killed by the alien. I think it would have worked just as well. But I don't want to spend too long harping on that. As for, I'm glad you brought up the scene with OJ at the ad shoot. I think the important thing that it introduced was not so much that he cares about animals, it's that he understands how they think, and he thinks about their perspective and how they think about the world. So whether it's like reflective surfaces near the horse, and later on, he's the only one who's thinking about what is this entity thinking. And that's how they achieve their goals ultimately, is because they think about it from its perspective and its point of view. So I think that's the important thing that it introduces in that scene.
I agree on that a lot. And you see he's doing his best, right? He's really trying to fuel. I think, to really briefly cover, essentially what happens is OJ and M's dad is struck by debris after they hear a random noise in the sky. We find out later it's this alien creature, and it's defecating all that it couldn't digest back out onto the land. It uses this as a defense and intimidation mechanism, and just as a convenience factor. But that's what kills his dad, is a quarter or a nickel that gets lodged in his dad's brain and kills him. And then we see them go, and he's building up the dream, and M's trying to get the fame and stuff like that. Just want to touch on that before. But how they work, or how the animals think, I think is a very good point, because we just saw what happened when an animal went crazy in the Gordy scene. And now we're seeing what animals can do when they're really tamed and handled by someone who respects them.
And just to kind of wrap up the exposition of the movie here, I really liked what they did with the introduction of OJ and M and their dad as well. It's very concise, and quickly we learn who the characters are, what their goals are, what their personalities are, what they're struggling with. And also, we very quickly care about these characters because we learn so much about them so quickly, but in a way that it's not like just throwing a bunch of facts at us. It's a very quick and powerful story to get us to care about the characters, to understand the characters, and learn where they are and where they come from.
Do you think that overall the movie's too long?
I don't think length had anything to do with why I liked or didn't like
Okay,
the movie.
just wondering.
So I would say, no, I don't think length hindered or helped the movie in any way.
I don't know what the runtime is, but to me, kind of would have liked a little more tension with not seeing this creature or not seeing it full. I'm a sucker for a big reveal instead of a kind of flirting with it throughout. It's just, Jaws, right? You have this creature that's huge. And the reason there's the soundtrack is because the stupid puppets and the animatronics wouldn't work, but it works. It gets that tension, it builds it up, and dun, 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 right? And I really would have liked to see a little bit more of that in this film. So for me, a little too short, honestly, but not by much. Maybe 10 minutes to boost tension, something like that.
I guess to be consistent, I would say I would have liked the movie more if they took out what I would consider unnecessary scenes with Choop. So I guess I would say the movie was a little too long in that regard.
Okay.
But that's
I don't think
not
that's really
the runtime. That's just
kind of a different complaint. Yeah, I was just wondering if
Yeah.
because most of the complaints up till now have been like this shouldn't have been here, this shouldn't have been here. This was, good. This was concise. I was just wondering. I want to talk about the concept of predators and prey, and also the concept of looking up, because I think they're similarly
Yes.
intertwined. Because second scene in the movie, it's another death scene, and it's because his father is looking up at the sky. That's the reason the nickel went through his eye. Something to be said, practically he might have died anyway, but it gives a much more disturbing death because he's looking up at the alien, trying to see what's going on. And it's like OJ says at a time in the movie, he's, it's just once he starts to figure it out, once he says, it's not a ship, it's got to eat, stuff like this, the little lines he says here and here, he understands it eventually. And then he figures out to not look up at it. He looks down, he doesn't try to confront it, not like, because that's how a lot of animals work. Some animals, if they think that you're confronting them, if they think that you're trying to confront them by making yourself, look bigger than you are, you look at them in the eyes, eye contact is huge. It's, direct action. That's something that ticks them off and will make them go crazy. If they think that you have more power over them, they're going to try to challenge that, and they're going to try to get that power back. And so I think that also, obviously it ties back into we think we have more control over nature than we really do. And do you think this kind of goes into if we try to challenge nature, it's going to put us in our place?
Well, it's kind of like the asserting dominance, or like the pride of this creature. It can't stand anyone who's arrogant enough to think that like they own the territory or they can control this thing. It's really about marking its territory and trying to assert its dominance, essentially. But as far as the point you brought up about predator and prey, the thing that this movie reminded me a ton of was, and slight spoilers for the game Subnautica, basically you're just the lone human who's stranded on an alien planet, and there are all these ginormous monsters, and you're just one little guy swimming around. And multiple scenes of the movie remind me so much of that, just like the pure panic when you hear the monster behind you and you turn around and see it, or like looking through the murky depths trying to figure out where it went. There are a lot of scenes that remind me of that, but it's that feeling of I'm no longer the predator, now I'm the prey, and a matter of outsmarting the predator so that you're no longer the prey.
You should watch Jaws.
Similar to that as well, but that's on a much smaller scale.
So I think it's a very good theme. Quick little story. When we were kids, we would play hide and seek in the house all the time. And for literally 30 minutes, we couldn't find my sister. Not because that she was somewhere super crazy. She just stood on top of the counter and no one ever looked up, right? And you see this theme in Avatar as well, where Jake is above the predator and looking down. And there's this whole thing about it's looking down on us. It has this almost omniscient view of the lay of the land. It can see exactly what it wants to eat. It can get there extremely quick. It can intimidate anything it wants. And it's scary. It hides in something that no one's going to look at, really. Who's going to come and cloud watch at a ranch, right? It's going to stay in its one spot and come back around. Even OJ says it. He's like, I've probably been looking at that same exact cloud for the past 6 months and didn't know it. Really a phenomenal theme, because We see it in Vast of Night, right? Just looking up can feel creepy because you want to keep your eyes on the ground, right? If you're advancing up a hill towards an enemy, you can't look up at them. You have to look down at your footing, and it's more comfortable to look down. If you're uncomfortable, you look down, right? And so it's asserting its dominance at all time by being up in the sky, and it'll attack you if you make eye contact at it. So it will always get what it wants. And if it doesn't get what it wants, it knows how to kill, to capitalize on anything. It's an aggressive creature. It's the alpha predator. It does what it wants, when it wants, and it eats whoever, whenever. And while what has gone into it has hurt it a little bit, or just given it some indigestion, as we see when it's puking up blood and the wheelchair and all the metal onto the house in a phenomenally choreographed scene, by the way. While it's there, you have this whole thing. What are they doing? They're cowering. They're looking down. They're not making eye contact. And it's not until OJ realizes, based on how the horse reacted and animals in general, it's like, just don't make eye contact with it. Don't look at it. Don't think about it. Just look down. Looking down and staying in my place is safe. And that's how they beat it, is they play to being the prey card so much that now the creature's the one with the pride and the arrogance. And then when it sees something that intimidates it and looks it in the eye, the balloon, it becomes its downfall. So they played the game to beat the monster. And it's a very rewarded theme, I think, in the movie, of they never really looked at it until it was about sacrifice, where M and OJ are both yelling at this creature to look at them or to look at the other one. And then they're both looking at it dead in the eye because they're more scared of losing each other than dying to the creature. So good. And it capitalizes on the bond that they've been forging this whole time, just about like hanging out together, careers together, smoking weed together, and just bonding, and this whole playful thing of, well, I've got work to do. Nah, I don't want to do work. So I think the predator utilizes its role very well. And I think the prey utilize their role very well. And then the war ground, or the war zone, it's a domain, the sky. They eliminate that factor for it by bringing it down to earth, but then capitalizing on the switch by beating it when it's in the sky. Just, yeah, I think it's a really good point and payoff.
So there's a mantra that's repeated multiple times throughout the Ranger's Apprentice series. The piece of advice is nobody ever looks up. So they use that multiple times for whether it's hiding in trees or wherever. They're very good at camouflage because they find spots that nobody ever looks. However, this movie, I don't know whether Jordan Peele read that series or what, but there are some of the shots I absolutely loved in this movie, where it's just the camera just pans up and we're just spinning around looking at the sky for several seconds. I'm not sure I've ever seen so many clouds in a single movie before, but it really works because every time we look up at the sky, there's tension because we know something's up there. Even when it's shots that we don't see anything except clouds, there's still tension because there could be something there. And I love those shots where the camera just pans up and we're just looking at the sky wondering what's going to happen.
Those are some good ones. Yeah, even when it's just clouds and noise, I guess sometimes. But like one of the things where OJ goes to try to rescue Lucky, there's a pretty good long take there where it's just circling around looking for the monster creature. And one of the thing is, every single person in the audience they all looked up. They looked up to see the monster, obviously. Lucky, the horse, doesn't. Pretty much just keeps its head on the ground, and it's the one animal that does not get eaten there. That was pretty interesting. Also, Jupe calls the creature the viewer, that's got to mean something. I mean, obviously it's has this omniscient viewpoint of everyone else. It can get anywhere it needs to, fast as it needs to.
Let's pump the brakes there.
Yeah,
calling it omniscient when it can't figure out the guy who just ran in the shed is in the shed is a
not
bit
omniscient, but And again, when OJ goes to rescue Lucky, he's looking for it and he's kind of keeping his head down, but once he does look up, that's when it attacks. So pretty neat world building there.
And it's such an open area too. There's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
But the creature isn't all powerful either. It's not like a tiger that can just slash through a cage or something. It can't digest. It can't go through, or it can't digest everything. It has to go through houses, and it can't suck up stuff that's really under even a little bit of stuff that's grounded, but it plays to its strengths and its weaknesses because it knows eventually people go outside. Whatever these food sources that it sees are, they go outside. And so I'll get them then. And it knows that people look at weird stuff, man. I mean, I would be like, what's that? And then I'm dead.
Okay. So basically, to cap off the movie, they're still trying to get the quote unquote perfect shot. And so they hatch this plan. They go out. OJ is essentially the bait trying to draw it in. And once they draw it in, is he a director or a filmmaker? I can't remember. What is
He's a
this guy's
cinematographer.
profession?
His name's Antlers Holst.
That's right. Okay. So Antlers is trying to get the perfect shot with his camera. Him and Angel are set up in their little supposedly well-disguised tent. They think they've got it. They've got it all planned. And they appear to have gotten the shot. But then Antlers, a little too full of himself for his dream or something, goes off on his lonesome to basically have a suicide mission to try to film it up close. And clearly it goes very poorly for him. And so they're back to square one.
Are they though? Like they never really showed. So they showed the footage of like, it was kind of like a shot from his camera as he was getting sucked in. And then, I mean, he died obviously, and the Angel gets thrown around a little bit.
Yeah, but they didn't get his camera back, did they?
So that's the thing. Like, they didn't get that camera back, but did that go with him?
He was filming on 2 cameras.
Most likely. Yes, he was.
See, what I didn't understand is, what is this guy's plan? Because like, I'm assuming it's just a suicide mission. He's gonna, get the shot like inside the monster or something.
Mm-hmm.
But how are they supposed to get the camera back?
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that. I'm not really sure how that gets to anything. It's a long, extended third act of a climax, and they between the huge elaborate plan they have, which was just awesome, him running around. Then they got the one guy that shows up on the bike who tries to film stuff out of nowhere a little bit. But then what's Kiki doing during that time?
She's banning
on the radio?
control tent. Yeah. Well, she's watching the cameras.
She's on the tent and she's watching cameras. Yeah. Okay.
She's watching for which of the inflatables go down. And that's how they've mapped out this area.
To warn people.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's how they know where to look for the shot.
Mm-hmm. So there's also a notion of film versus digital in this, where the only way to get this is from a crank camera that takes film to actually capture stuff, instead of a digital electronic camera that would just die and go down when the alien passes by, like all other electronics do. And so they do get all that. They get their impossible shot from it chasing OJ. They don't get inside, obviously, but even the end of the movie is the final shot of the film is the picture that Kiki took from the crank camera that gets the monster perfectly attacking the balloon. And it's I don't know, like, is it saying film is what a lot of movies, like, that's what all movies used to use? It's what a decent amount of movies still use, but a lot of them have turned to digital. But there's this kind of elitist notion around film that it's the better way to do things. It's the thing that feels best. If you have a very well-trained eye, you can tell when something is shot on film and when something is shot on digital. But there are also plenty of cinematographers who, like famous cinematographers, who think that digital is even better and works just as good. And there's one cinematographer in particular, his name is Steve Yedlin, I'm pretty sure. He's the DP for Rian Johnson. He always uses digital. He loves digital, talks about it, but he shoots in a way that he makes his shots look like they're shot on film. And so it's really interesting, and it's a lot to get into, but essentially, like, is it saying that film is superior, and also that when you truly want to get something that matters, when you truly want to capture an iconic moment, you have to make it a movie? I don't know, but there's also like the notion of faking things, and there's talk of people, they have those, the digital cameras that Angel sets up, and they're constantly talking about, oh, this, and I saw this online, it flashed by real quick, it's not real. And then maybe when you catch it on film, it's proof. It's not really undeniable proof, but there's more weight behind the proof there. I think it might be saying something along those lines.
As someone who does not know about this world, I was like, wow, what an awesome solution to their problem. This guy just invented a camera that went ahead and just cranked out some image, and he brought the handheld stuff. He's And you also know that he's a fan of it. It's not a far reach for the cinematographer to do it, because when he's at his house, what's he doing? He's watching film. He's got the whole board there to play it and all that stuff as well. So I saw it more as diving deeper into the way that this guy's mind works anyway. I don't know. We would have to get into whether or not Jordan Peele sees himself then as Antlers or not. Because that would be the crux of the thing.
I don't think so. And also, I think Carter, I'm going to have to be honest, I think that's a very big reach, because just look at how it turned out for Antlers.
Yeah.
And they didn't even get his shot.
Mm-hmm. But that's also possibly just saying, don't be arrogant, you know? It goes into the whole thing of pride again.
Maybe it's a look at the pride of film versus digital. The guy who uses film is the guy who dies and doesn't get the shot.
It's possible, but they wouldn't have got the shot without the film. So, like, I'm not saying, I don't think Peele is saying that there is one solution either, that you have to ditch the other. I think he's just trying to throw out stuff, make you think.
I think it's just for the plot, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I get it, and I'm just not smart enough to understand it. But there's got to be something there that has more meaning than just a plot device that, you know, electronics go down so cameras die.
Well, Carter, weren't you telling me that there was something interesting about the end credits as well?
Yeah, so can't 100% confirm this, but I'm pretty sure that when cameras run out of film, it flashes a little bit, there's like colors, and then it just goes orange. And then that's what is picked up for some reason. I, again, can't confirm it. I'm not sure why, but that's just pretty sure what happens. And the end credits of this movie is just an orange screen with the words and the credits rolling through it, instead of, you know, what is typically just black, sometimes white, or, you know, some things behind it. But last three shots of this movie, to wrap it up, it's just shot of Kiki close up with her, and then it turns around and then shows OJ on his horse, and then the Western music swells, and then it turns into, and then it goes finally to the picture that Kiki took, that printed out, and then is lying there in the little booth, and then it just cuts to orange. So it's like kind of saying that, it's Peele kind of saying, like, you know, this is, I mean, obviously it's saying the end of the story, but here's what he's done. He's got his characters who, they accomplished their mission, they got their shot, roll credits.
Yes. I think that's more so just a nice way to tie in to the movie with the credits. I don't think it's necessarily like a political statement about digital versus film.
Then why is it orange?
Well, because like using film was a plot point, and it's a nice way to tie in to wrap up the movie.
Yes, but did you know that fact before Carter said it?
No, and I'm still not 100% sold. Just
well, I guess for me then it's the obscurity of it is what pushes it. Like it would be a super subtle dig, rather than something that's blatant.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things that Peele is too much of a cinephile, and he's too smart of a screenwriter to just throw something out there and not have it mean anything. It's I'm not saying it has to be a super profound tie-in, but there's meaning behind it. It's not just, you know, I'm been using cameras in this one. These are film, these are digitals, and I'll end it like a film camera ends, you know. Again, I can't really fully wrap my head around the entirety of the thematic meaning of all that stuff, but I know it means something.
Fair enough. For me, who's again not outside of the world, I do think it's just a great way to solve a problem, really ingenious. You don't see that type of solution in horror movies. They always just try to run away instead. They give up on it. And this is like, no, this is what we're going to do to save the ranch and to finalize the movie. Do we want to get into the pros and cons, the little itty bitties of the movie?
Yeah, let's do pros and cons.
Okay. So if I may, creature design. It looked gorgeous. I thought it was a great take to put this almost like mollusk looking sea creature that looked like a UFO,
just a little
into
flying
the
saucer
sky as the dominant species. I thought it looked great. I thought it hiding behind the cloud was great. I thought it was a really well thought out monster.
All right, I'm gonna have to disagree vehemently with you on this one. So for starters, fine, the twist that it's basically an animal, it's not a spaceship, sure, like that's an okay twist. But the way that it looked, I absolutely hated it. So for starters, it's basically just like, it looks like an olive and it just flies around. But it looked way better like a weirdly shaped olive than its like essentially final form at that final shot.
Mhm.
I could not stand it for a couple reasons. One, it basically looked like my third grade origami project with some ribbons glued on. But really the problem was it was trying to be so creative that it's not creative at all. With the CGI for this monster, they were trying to make it so abstract and not seen before that it just looked, in my opinion, super ugly. And when it opens like its mouth and it's just like these square ribbons opening and closing, it looked really ugly and very unbelievable in a bad way.
Okay, you're talking about the end with the square ribbons, right?
Yes.
So you hated both its final form and its UFO looking thing, or just one or the other, or just the final form, just the reveal.
The final form more so,
Okay.
but neither of them really make sense practically. And
Okay.
I'll talk about it more from the point of view of the animal in a minute. But yeah,
Okay.
I did not like how it looked. It's just this like super membraney creature, and it just like opens up its sails for like it basically turns itself into a sail for no reason. That's just another. It's just trying to be too abstract.
Yeah, that's honestly fair. Whenever it was in disc form and it just opened its bottom to suck stuff in, it kept looking like the brim of a cowboy hat. Like, cause it showed it really did. I don't know. It was just because they showed Jupe's hat so many times, him taking it off, putting it on, flipping around, and then like they would show the alien, and it's always from, the ground because it's from the human's perspective, human's point of view.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it really did look like a hat coming down eating people, which was funny.
See, to me, the only thing I could think of is like the very end of an elephant's trunk.
Okay.
That's all I could think of every time I saw it.
One nostril.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm the only one intelligent here.
that's fair.
As always.
So have you ever seen the way like a sea anemone opens up or like stuff like that? It was so original.
Yeah.
And it also, I kept thinking this is what almost like biblical angels are kind of get described as, and now it's in the sky and it looks so cool. And I just thought that a creature that is so pretty, he disregards the standard stereotype of like dark and brooding colors to a creature that is willing to come out in the day, a creature that is not really that dense. It's not compact. It's not weaponized looking or anything like that. It doesn't have like knives for hands or anything. It's alluring. It's pretty, and it has it has that
jelly
allure to it. Of its mouth that does the opening and the closing, which I thought looked great. Kind of calling back to just how standard sea creatures worked. It was an awesome predatorial sea creature from the sky. So that's my rebuttal is I just thought it was really well thought out. I thought its transformations were really pretty. I thought it was really rewarding to see it in action. And I thought the trope of seeing it during the day rather than just seeing it at night in this creepy world was a good payoff. But I kind of respect where you're going from. I'm very much more into that fantastical horror side than the, I don't know, more realism side. The realism side I find really boring. So just seeing something go crazy was really cool, but crazy in a controlled way.
No, I like that they showed it. I just wish they'd created it differently.
Fair. I like how they showed it. Look, I'm not with Warren. Will, I'm closer to, yeah, no, I'm closer to Will, your opinion, than I am to Warren's. But I really liked its like intimidation ritual. It was like flipping out like red when it's all the balloon trying to scare it or something. I love Jordan Peele's use of daytime horror, and I think Us does it a little better, honestly. I think, yeah, because Get Out, all the horror scenes are pretty much at night, which works for that movie because it's really just him trying to get away from something, and it just happens to take place at night.
Also in Get Out, the scenes where he's like hypnotized and like falling into his own mind.
Yeah.
It uses darkness
True.
there, even if it's not nighttime.
Yes. But like the first scene where he goes to the sunken place because the mom hits the spoon or whatever, it takes place at night. Most of that movie takes place at night. Us is like the first invasion takes place at night, but then like when it really revs up, it's just daytime. It's just a beach and it's like terrifying. There, all the just chaos and just it like because it's a beach, it's a boardwalk and it's supposed to be, you know, teeming with people and life and, activity and it's just desolate and things are just burning. And at the end, like just it, man, that final shot just gives me chills every time with the people just holding hands across America is so good. Us like is my favorite Jordan Peele movie. Actually, I think it's the best of his three so far. He'll probably top it one day. Yeah, daytime. It's very underutilized, and it's something that can be dangerous with big CGI stuff like this. Honestly, because CGI is easier to mask if you're doing it at night, and if it's bad. But like the new Jurassic World movie, a lot of the CG was during night, and all the bad CG was during the daytime, and it was obvious to see when it sucked and when it wasn't. Back to creature design, I think it worked. It didn't blow me away, but I really liked it.
I guess another pro for me was just the kids being alien scene, messing with him in the barn. Bro, gave me
Yeah,
a good old jump scare. Really liked it. Kept me on pace the whole time. Just
yeah,
yeah.
That was good.
yeah. That was a tense
Warren, you
scene.
have a lot of cons. What do you want to pop in here with?
All right, so I'm gonna mix in some pros and some cons, things I liked and didn't like. So I'm not, 30 minutes just bashing it or 30 minutes just giving it praise. I'm gonna start with that opening scene. We've already talked about it, but at first I didn't even realize it was part of the movie because it was just so different than what I was expecting. And it was such a jarring, jolting opening. I loved it at the beginning when it happened.
Mhm.
However, and I already talked about this, I didn't like how disconnected. I thought it was going to play a much larger role in the plot and in the main character's storylines. It was, in my opinion, very disconnected. Another thing I liked about it, the way it introduced the characters, it was 5 minutes or something, but the scene of OJ and his dad dying, and then just the first scene with OJ and M, how quickly we see both their personalities and how quickly we see that, OJ's the responsible one who's trying to save the ranch and putting in hard work day after day. And M's the one who's, trying to promote her own career, trying to do her own thing, doesn't like to work, but they're siblings. They're fantastic for each other, even though you don't realize it at the beginning. And the way we're introduced to the characters and care about them so quickly is done so well. The title slides, we haven't talked about it yet, where it just abruptly, the scene ends and we're
Yep.
immediately, a title slide is on with someone's name. Usually it starts out with horses, or it might have had one for Gordy. Did it have one for Gordy?
It did. It was just like dividing it into chapters. It was, I don't know which came first, but I think it was Ghost, and then it was another horse, and then it was Gordy, and then it was Lucky, and then it was Jean Jacket.
Ultimately, Jean Jacket. Yes,
Yep.
that was fantastic. Not only setting the stage
Mhm.
for these different chapters and seeing who kind of not the focal character, but like the focal, at least plot character it was fantastic. As soon as you see the Jean Jacket title slide, you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
This is where it's all coming together. This is where there's going to be a big clash as soon as you see the title slide for Jean Jacket. That was fantastic. But also, they were so abrupt and unannounced that it really added, like, it wasn't a full-blown jump scare, but it was just so abrupt and unexpected. Even after seeing like 3 of them, you didn't expect the 4th one. It was just so abrupt and just surprising. I love that. I really liked how the suspense was done in this movie. There were several scenes where it's just built really well, and it's not over the top. It's just very rooted in the character and their own feelings and the suspense that they feel. Okay, let's move to a couple things I didn't like. So we already talked about CGI, so I won't harp on that. One of my big complaints about this movie is the monster. A lot of things that, if you think about it from the monster's point of view, it just doesn't make any sense, and it's just convenient writing for the plot, essentially. So let's start with the inconsistency of the monster's intelligence. We see a lot of things that seem to imply that the monster has pretty solid intelligence. It can tell when people are looking up at it. It's trying to assert dominance. It clearly is not completely dumb. However, then you go straight into, it can't tell that OJ just ran into the shed, or OJ's wearing an orange hoodie. Oh, now it can't tell that that's OJ. Or angel antlers are hiding under this tiny little tent and it can't tell that they're there. There's so many things that it makes no sense what the monster knows and doesn't know.
Almost fair. I think the hiding under building stuff is a valid complaint. I think when he put on the hoodie, he put on his hoodie because he had two reflectors in the back of it that looked like eyes. And that was getting it to chase him. So that was all part of the plan. And so he could ride the horse, see where he was going, and still get the monster to chase him because the monster thought it was looking at him.
Okay, that's fair. I actually
Yeah.
didn't realize that that's what those are for. Okay, since we're on the point of the monster's intelligence, let's go to a question I have for you two, because I wasn't sure, maybe I misunderstood. The part with the grasshopper covering the camera. Did the monster play any part in that?
No, it's just funny.
It might be just funny. It's also a praying mantis. It's also cameras are digital and the digital doesn't capture it perfectly. I don't know.
Yeah, but if a praying mantis is on the lens of your film,
It's not going to matter if
camera,
it's film
not
or
gonna
digital.
it's not gonna work there too. Like,
Yeah, I guess like you can brush it off and like trying to get something from a distance, not being there with your camera, it's not going to work as well as when you go to somewhere and you set up and you line your shot up and then you go for it
Okay, so I bring
and
this
you get
up
it yourself.
because this situation, to me, it's a lose-lose. Because if option A, somehow the monster did have the intelligence and telepathy or something to control this creature,
Yeah.
it sounds like that would be pretty cool. However, if that were the case, then it might not line up with the fact that the monster thought it was very inconspicuous to hide in the exact same cloud in the exact same spot for 6 months straight. However, if option B, the monster did not play any role in this praying mantis jumping on the camera, to me, that was kind of the moment in the movie that just completely shattered any immersion I had in the movie. Because it's just so, and storytelling, there's always this idea of suspension of disbelief. And what can you get away with that the reader or viewer or listener can believe? They can always believe up to a certain point some number of events that are fantastic or unbelievable or out of the ordinary or supernatural. It was just such a lazy plot point just to make us, oh, they couldn't get the shot here, on to the next scene. It just seemed like kind of an afterthought, like, oh yeah, wait, what are we going to do here so that we can progress the movie? Let's just have a random insect jump on the screen and then it'll conveniently fly away right after the monster disappears. So I had multiple gripes with
Maybe, I don't know. I don't really have a counter for that, except that I think I have, and I think will definitely too, have a much higher tolerance for suspension of disbelief than you, unfortunately. But also I was just kind of laughing because she was throwing Sour Patch Kids at it, because she can't get to the camera because she's not there with the camera. Again, there's no ladder. They just set it up and left it there. I don't know.
I hope you like Sour Patch Kids.
You didn't think that was convenient? You didn't find it lazy at all that there's just a random bug that happens to land the thing and fly away as soon as the monster
I
disappears?
didn't even think
No,
about
I
it, man.
predicted it
In
and
all
was
honesty,
ready for it. I was
don't
like, this is
know.
gonna be the funniest thing in the world. Because here's the beauty of it. It's called the impossible shot, right? It's what they're chasing. And of course, during one of the best times where they've just put minimal effort in, this bug now totally obliterates this thousands of dollars plan to get this shot, right? It's the funny thing because he's avoided so many other horror tropes. When do they have, like, you have the daytime horror aspect, you have disparate aspects of like where the monster's located and stuff like that, or just it's another take on the UFO story. He's subverted so many other expectations during this film, but he still gives you one of the classic horror tropes. I thought it was so funny,
Yeah.
man. I was like, it's gonna fly away as soon as it's gone. And then it did. And meanwhile, Kiki Palmer is like, I hope you like Sour Patch Kids. And she's like, tink, tink, tink. And it was the funniest thing because who else is watching during the scene? It's Angel. Angel's back at the base going like, praying mantis on the lens. There's a praying mantis on the lens. And Kiki Palmer is running out and her brain is so focused. Like there's still no respect for the monster. She's just running out in the middle of nowhere and throwing the Sour Patch Kids on it until she realizes she's in trouble. And I thought it was such a great payoff. And to me, it was more of an homage than lazy writing.
And again, it goes into the theme of you plan all this, to the last detail so meticulously, but you can't plan nature, Of course, a praying mantis is just going to show up and block your shot.
Or you can plan nature because the praying mantis is going to show up and block your shot.
You can plan it?
Yeah.
From a writing standpoint, it's very easy to plan nature, apparently.
Maybe. Do you think that's an immersion problem? Like, were you fully immersed before then? I mean, because I feel like I was, and so I think it just slipped me by. But I think if you're observing it from a removed perspective, you're like, oh, another.
No, I would say I was pretty immersed and enveloped and intrigued in the movie until that happened, and the whole rest of the movie is just
Dang,
everything that happened.
sorry,
I was just out of it after that point. It was hard to get back into it because it's just so many things kept happening that were. Let's just move to the next one. This monster, once again, I have issues with how it was executed. It's so inconsistent with what hurts it, or I don't know if it was implied that it actually died at the end or if it was just hurt. But regardless, it spends the entire movie swallowing people and pieces of buildings and seats and all kinds of materials. But the things that hurt it are a little flag with some string. And the thing that either hurts it or kills it at the end is an inflatable cowboy.
So to actually counter your point, it's not that that ribbon hurts it. It's
He
that
got
it annoys
stuck
it.
in its windpipe, was the theory,
Yeah,
right?
it's like it's sticking there, and so you're also dealing
Why
with
didn't
characters
just
who aren't giving you total information.
Why didn't it just change shape to a sail again? That would have fixed the problem.
Maybe the mouth can't change shape,
Maybe.
man. Yeah. Also, everything it spits out was, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but everything it spits out was pretty solid. Like keys, nickels, a wheelchair. The plastic horse came out.
No, it
Yeah.
spat out an entire thing of
Also blood.
like blood
Yeah.
human remains.
Yeah. But maybe it's just the stringy, smooth, slick plastic that annoys it. I don't know. Essentially what I'm saying is
No, it clearly annoyed it, but
yeah.
it also seemed to imply that it kind of like hurt it, like it choked on it or something.
I don't think the blood that came out of it was it being hurt. I think it was just the blood that came out of it was more of a annoyance defense factor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're also dealing with narrators who don't have an omniscient view of the creature. So I would be wary of saying they said this, therefore it is true. That's what they thought happened. The explosion that happens at the end could just have scared it so much it backed off. Like, you don't know what it did. All you know is that, as far as the movie wants to tell you, is that they reached their goal. They got the impossible shot, and the creature has now taken a backseat, whether or not it killed it, or it was hurt, or it was just scared and it just run and hide. Because you yell, like, if you just make yourself to be a bigger thing, right? I forget which type of bear it is, so don't quote me on this, but like certain bears, you're supposed to make yourself bigger and like yell at them. They're like, ah! And then other bears, you're supposed to just run and hide. Like, because poor bears just stalk.
Even a grizzly, like a black bear would be scared of you, but don't do that to a grizzly bear because it will just kill you.
Yeah, and so I think it was very much one of them, a more, its bark is worse than it bite. I didn't think that the creature died at the end. I thought it was more like wounded or something. So that's my 2 cents on it. But if it broke immersion for you, I get where you're coming from. How is a creature that's mostly pillows ingesting and digesting stuff fine? Like, nah, it's fair.
I'm glad you brought up the perfect shot, because that leads me to my final issue here. It's only, a small thing, like, I don't know, maybe the entire premise of the movie. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, would you agree that the premise of this movie is that the characters are trying to get this so-called impossible shot, or the opera shot? They spend the entire movie trying to get photographic proof of this monster.
100% disagree. I completely think that is a surface level interpretation of what the theme of the movie is.
You said premise.
But that's the main.
You said premise.
Maybe not. Okay, premise maybe is not the best word, but that's the plot. They spend the entire movie trying to photograph the monster, correct?
Until they realize that, until Kiki Palmer's character says, like, I'm going to get this, right? Because I didn't really think that her goal was to take a photo. I thought her goal was just to attract the monster. And it wasn't until the fourth shot went through and then the camera pans over to the photos that have popped out. I was like, oh, multi-purpose. And
No,
then
but
I was
I'm not talking. You're talking about like the very final scene. I'm talking about like the entire movie.
in the middle of the second act, I guess, but not since the beginning. I think he's just trying to save the farm. And I think that's why they're trying to get the impossible shot. Is they're not trying to get an impossible shot because it's just a whim. It's to save their dad's dream. It's
No, I
to
know.
save their business.
Okay, perhaps they phrased this poorly. Maybe it's not their motivation per se, like their wife's dream just to get this thing, but their goal, whatever they're trying to do after they get the shot, they're all trying to get the shot, correct?
Mhm.
I would agree with you, Warren, more or less.
That's where I was going with
I think
this.
I know what you're saying.
Okay.
And
Just establishing a baseline. Okay,
All right. So what am I missing then?
so my problem is with this idea of the perfect shot. Like they're going to photograph it, and that will be indisputable evidence that they found this thing. Because this movie is not set in the year 1860. This movie is not set before CGI is invented. Query, there are like the internet and CGI and everything already exist, query established in the world, and they reference these other UFO sightings online. So clearly, in this established world, there's already enough CGI that it could very easily. In other words, what I'm getting at is a shot of a monster, a supposed shot of a monster, basically means nothing. It's not this impossible shot that's going to, give them a family fortune that they all are trying to achieve.
Okay. I
It
see
could
where you're
very.
going now.
Everyone else would think it was fake.
So
Or should think it was
I'll
fake.
hop in really quick with that understanding. So the original part, let me follow up with, and I think that adds to the film. I think that them chasing this thing adds to the desperation of it because they're not thinking about what would happen if the world contests what they've seen there. They're just thinking about how to get the impossible shot to make, what is it, like $500,000, and that's just for one shot or whatever. But they're on like conspiracy sites. They haven't hit the news or anything like that. And I do think that in Jordan Peele's other movies, just because the movie's over does not mean that the characters' problems have been solved. We see that in Get Out, and we see that in Us. Is that the movie's over, but there's a life that continues on after the screen ends. And I think that also carries a lot with one of the loves from one of my favorite films of all time, The Irishman. Is just because the film has concluded, it doesn't mean that there was a happy ending or that there was an ending that the characters believe is going to happen. I'm 100% with you. In this universe, it is established quite a few times that, oh, they see this, they see that. And CGI is very good. It's a very modern movie. I'm right there with you. I would be hesitant to say that they 100% are able to financially financially succeed in wake of this shot. But I do think that for the characters, it's enough.
yeah, I agree. I think it's not so much that they know they're going to be believed, but they're going to say, I mean, like, what's the alternative? Are they going to say, yeah, people are going to think we faked it. Why try, And the fact that at the end they get it on a printed out photograph from a crank photography booth gives it one more push towards credibility. It's, something that's just a little, a good bit harder to fake than if they got it on digital and just uploaded it online. They have, a decent amount of witnesses, and they, there's always people that aren't going to believe stuff, and there's always stuff that's going to be faked, but it mattered to them. They got their photo, they stopped the monster, they found each other again, cut to orange, and that's all that needed to be told.
Okay, so I think this highlights our differences in how we approach and watch a movie. So this was yet another thing that severely broke immersion for me, is why are they running around risking their lives unnecessarily over and over again for something that clearly will not ultimately do any good for them? And from their perspective, it should be very obvious that this is not worth risking your life for. And not always, but many times when I watch movies, I like to think about essentially put myself in the character's shoes, and how would I think if I were in their shoes, or how should they be thinking? Does it line up? Is it consistent? Their way of thinking, their way of problem solving, the character themselves, are they consistent? Do their decisions make sense? And in this movie, they did not at all for me because of that.
That's fair. That's a way to watch it. But I think I never try to do that. I always say, how can I learn from this person? How can I learn from this film? How can I try to view, not put myself in this situation, but try to view this situation from this character's perspective, which sounds similar, but I think there's a difference if the only difference is I'm me and you're you, and every single person thinks differently. But I think that movies that are one of the best ways at kind of allowing someone to see into someone else's mind.
Such like Get Out.
But looking into someone else's mind, that's why I find it important that the character's decisions are consistent and make sense. And they were neither in this case. Well, they were consistent, but they didn't make sense.
So if I may, it's what other choice did he have? Because the immediate answer to that is he could sell the ranch. But it's almost like arguing with a hoarder, seen him my whole life growing up, about getting rid of a birthday card from 20 years ago. It's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. Like, he would rather risk his life than give up on his father's dream in the midst of his father dying for what seems like nothing. And he's like, my dad dying because of an airplane thing never made much sense to me. And now he has a chance to prove to himself how and why his dad died, to let the world know how and why his dad died, and to save his dad's dream. And I think that's more what ties Daniel Kaluuya into the decision, because Keke Palmer doesn't have any authority as far as the movie lets you know that she can sell the ranch. It really seems to be in OJ's hands, and it's also he's been spit in the face of by the industry as well. At the very beginning in the audition scene, the first real funny thing is when he says, "My name's OJ," and then the white lady's like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
your name's OJ."
It was so fun. I laughed so hard at that. I thought it was
great.
really funny. But after the horse reacts and the older guy who got them the spot is there and consoling him, did you guys see what they were wheeling in behind him?
Yeah, they're wheeling in a CGI horse because
Yep.
they're gonna take out the real thing for special effect.
And it's just like he's trying to beat the industry. And that Carter could also tie into the real film versus digital, is they capture it on film and he uses real horses instead of CGI, which means that, of course, for this film, Jordan Peele went and got a real UFO to star as Jean Jacket. And so for me, that's where I come at it, is that character's him, and he's going to act in the way that best suits him. And he'd rather risk his life on this crazy dream because he's already ostracized and broke. So it is kind of that trope of what more can they possibly take from the main character.
Okay, so I almost agree with you, and you bring up some good points. I agree that even though if I were in his shoes, like, I would have sold the ranch, I think it makes more financial sense. But for him, it's very consistent with his character that he cares about, like, his family's legacy, and he wants to do whatever he can to keep the ranch. That's great. My problem is with, and your point, maybe he was chasing after a monster because he wants to prove to himself that it's real. Sure. Even that's a bit of a stretch, but sure, I'd even be willing to go that far. My problem is he's going to risk his life multiple times, not to prove that the monster's real, because he's already done that, and not to save the ranch. Well, it shouldn't be to save the ranch, because, like I said before, it should be very clear that even if they get the perfect shot, it's not going to get them this money that they want. Everyone's just going to think it's CGI. It's just, in light of all that, it's very difficult to believe that the shot could do them any financial good, therefore that what they're doing will be any good of, like, the goals that they've set. And it's very difficult to believe them running in to face certain death for something that they should know will not do them any good.
But how much do you think someone's going to pay for that picture at the end? And I think, like,
next to nothing.
That's I disagree. I
Depends,
think
dude.
part of why like one of the first scenes where they introduce Jupe and they go into his little secret, what is it called? Gordy's house or whatever.
Yeah, I
The
think so.
the show with Gordy,
Yes.
people will pay thousands and thousands and thousands for stuff that isn't real, doesn't exist, is fabricated. And that definitely ties into the end.
Well, then maybe he should have spent his time learning some computer animated design instead of.
I had nothing more to say, man. It's for me, it's
Yeah.
I think it's a great payoff. And I do think it's consistent with how the character thinks, but agree to disagree. Carter, you got pros cons?
Not too much that hasn't been covered. I think, yeah, people chase spectacle, just like us going to see this movie, you know? It plays into the fake part of the movie where people, they want to see stuff even if they don't think it's real. I mean, you know, like the people go in there to see Jupe's show. Like, what do they think is going to happen? A magic show? Do they think that any of that's going to be actually real? It is in a sense, but it's just people chasing spectacle, chasing a thrill. And then it's OJ, and not necessarily OJ, but more Angel and kind of Kiki, and definitely Holst is his name. They're there, they're chasing spectacle. They want that impossible shot, you know? And then also us, we're wants to ever pay to see a horror movie, just chasing the thrill, chasing spectacle.
Jordan Peele, if you ever see this, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
If your films get worse, don't keep doing what you're doing. Go back to the original stuff, man.
I guess on that note, Jordan Peele, I mean, alleged listener, if you ever tune in, are on the right track, but just switch some things up. You're getting there.
I actually know a spot you can have on the show, which will be up and available for you should you choose to join us.
Yeah, we'll kick Warren out, we'll replace him with you if you want.
All right. So Warren, let me
Ratings.
down first, brother. What do you give this movie
Uh-huh.
rated out of 10?
All right, so, and maybe it was Jordan Peele's original intention to call this movie Don't Look Up. I think it would have fit much better.
Agreed.
Maybe that was his original plan, and then title got taken, and he was like,
Yeah.
oh well, guess I'll have to go to plan B. Okay, as far as the movie, basically the way I look at it is there are a lot of things that I liked that the movie did very well, but there are enough things I didn't like and enough immersion breaking that I have no interest in seeing it again. Easy 6 out of 10.
Called it.
Nailed it.
Yep.
We are predictable. Okay.
Yeah.
Carter?
So give me your Jordan Peele ranking too. You would think
Ooh.
you said Get Out is a 5, and you would say this is a 6, a little better.
Yes, definitely better than Get Out.
Okay.
Carter, let me down. Do it.
I don't think I'm gonna let you down too much. I loved it. Had a great time. A lot to unpack. A lot I don't understand. I think it's ambitious. It's a swing for the fences, and he's getting more and more money to do more and more stuff, which is cool. But he's keeping his feet on the ground, which is so cool to see and so rare to see. So solid 8 out of 10 for me. I would also give Get Out an 8 out of 10, and I would give Us a 9.
Wow. So I guess with all that being said, I think I like the movie the most. So I'm at an 8.5, right under a 9. Just because if this were a first film, it'd probably be higher. But I did come in expecting some things from Jordan Peele that I didn't get. Not to say that, you know, the music or like the nail biting tunes that he uses should have been in this film. But I very much liked them in the other two. Get Out, probably number 1, 9.5. Really enjoy it. Us, the more I think about it, the more it grows on me. That's up there with a 9 to 8.5, and this one is a solid 8.5.
Solid.
Just because he's not going too far backwards, in my opinion. He's finding his groove, and Carter, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Just like you said, he's been very ambitious to give 3 very unique looks at the horror thriller genre, to cover aliens, to cover the literal psychological horror side, and to just cover something so bizarre. One thing, bring back more Duke Winston, please. Huge fan of him. Kind of was hoping he'd be in this movie, but it's okay. Oh no, Winston Duke. Sorry, Winston Duke, not Duke Winston. Winston Duke.
Can't go wrong with Winston Duke.
Small cast. There's like 5 characters, so
But I think your casting is on. I think the casting's on point. I think the characters are on point, and I personally love the world building on everything to do with it. So yeah. Any final thoughts, guys?
don't think so.
This is fun. Let's do it again soon.
Oh yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, to all of our Who Knows listeners, thanks for wasting a little bit of time with us. Y'all take it easy, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.